You're listening to the Restaurant Operator Podcast.
At Summit Hill Foods Professional, creativity comes with a side of convenience. See how our full range of sauces and bases can help you reinvent your recipes and your customer experiences. By simplifying the cooking process, cutting down on ingredients, shortening prep time, and reducing waste, you can bring even more flavor to your menu with a whole lot less of everything else. Learn more at shfoodspro.com/bigflavors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Restaurant Operator Podcast. I'm Mandy Detweiler, Managing Editor for Networld Media Group. We're here today with Greg Willman, Chairman and CEO of Naf Naf Middle Eastern Grill, and we're talking ethnic food in the fast casual space. Greg, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for the invitation. We really appreciate it.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Naf Naf, how the company got started?
Yeah, Naf Naf is a fast casual Middle Eastern concept. Started in Chicago about a decade ago or so. Middle Eastern immigrant. His family relocated to Chicago, and he brought with him the recipes and really food memories of that he had grown up on, and decided to turn those into a restaurant concept that he launched in an old converted Taco Bell in Naperville, Illinois, I think in 2009.
Can you share some insights into the sourcing and selection process for ingredients used in Naf Naf's Middle Eastern dishes? How do you guys come up with the various ingredients?
Well, they really are. Everything we do is based off those original recipes that the brand was founded on. We import a lot of spices from the Middle East. Our pickles come from the Middle East. Our eggplant comes from the Middle East still. Middle Eastern suppliers. And so we really have been, we've maintained the authenticity that the brand was started with. We do a pretty narrow slice of what people, typically today maybe more commonly referred to as the Mediterranean category. We really are kind of, Middle Eastern centric in terms of the menu that we deliver. And it's really important to us that we kind of maintain the authentic processes and flavor profiles that the brand was founded on.
In what ways does Naf Naf Grill accommodate diverse dietary preferences and restrictions within the context of Middle Eastern cuisine?
Yeah, really, our menu is it's fairly simple in terms of the number of ingredients and number of proteins and entrees and those kinds of things. However, it's lots of vegetarian options, lots of vegan options, lots of gluten-free options. You can eat very healthily at a Naf Naf Middle Eastern Grill. You can also be indulgent if you choose to be. So we actually feel very, very good about kind of the breadth of the offering that we're able to provide, even though we have a relatively small menu.
What efforts does the brand make to educate customers about the cultural significance and history of these Middle Eastern dishes on your menu?
Yeah, that's really part of the growth curve that we're on now is helping people get introduced to this type of cuisine. The penetration levels are different in different parts of the country. People's familiarity with Middle Eastern and Mediterranean food is different in different parts of the country. So we really feel like as we expand our brand, task number one is to get people comfortable who may not have eaten Middle Eastern food before or don't really know what Middle Eastern food is or what the flavor profiles are. Is to be, an easy opportunity for them to experience it maybe for the first time or maybe the second or third time if they've had it once or twice before. That's one of the things that we've really tried to do over the last couple of years is really make sure that our front door is as wide open as it can possibly be, right? People will discover baba ganoush, they'll discover skug and harissa and some of the more esoteric parts of our menu once they've experienced, fresh baked pita and roasted, chicken shawarma and some of the things maybe that they're a little more familiar with.
I love chicken shawarma. It's one of my favorites. So how does the brand balance offering a quick dining experience with the time-intensive preparation often associated with Middle Eastern cooking?
Yeah, that's kind of the sweet spot for us, right? Is trying to figure that out and figure it out in just the right way. our food is terrific, and that's all attributable to Sahar and the recipes that he founded the brand on, and really the maniacal approach to the culinary side of the business that he was really famous for. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we continue to deliver food at that high quality level. And I stand by. We believe we're best in class in terms of our food. I would stand by that. We were just awarded by a magazine out of New York, the top one of the top shawarmas in the world, top shawarma in the U.S. Another publication recently came out naming us best falafel. We fresh bake pita in all of our stores every day. So we'll never not do those things. That's what our brand was founded on. But we've got to be able to do that in an environment that is quick serve, that doesn't require skilled labor at every position, right? Because then the economics of a fast casual brand just don't work very well. So we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really dealing with that, addressing that, so that we can run higher. Really, and this started when we started to franchise the business, right? You've got to be able to replicate it. You've got to be able to do it at scale. And so we really had to look at all the operating elements of the business and see what we could simplify without jeopardizing in any way the quality of the product. And we feel very good about kind of where we landed all that.
How does the brand stay true to its Middle Eastern roots while still appealing to a broad, diverse customer base in the fast casual industry?
Yeah, well, staying true to our roots is really that is our identity. There's a philosophy statement in every one of our restaurants. It basically quotes Sahar and his approach to bringing this cuisine initially to Chicago and then beyond as we've started to grow the brand. And it really is NAF translated is an invitation to dine, right? It's let's share a meal together, right? Let's cook out. Let's whatever in whatever today's vernacular would be in the U.S., right? That's what NAF means, and that's what he was really all about, and that's who we're really all about. We want to be very authentic in terms of how we deliver this food. And the hospitality that surrounds that dining experience was very much a part of who Sahar was, and is very much a part of our DNA going forward.
So what are some challenges that you've had introducing Middle Eastern cuisine to the fast casual market?
Actually, it's the challenges exist for sure, but it's actually so far gone very well as we've expanded outside of Chicago. We've gone into markets like Cleveland and Indianapolis and Charlotte, and the brand has done really very well. We have a significant focus when we go to new markets, obviously on creating some awareness around the brand and trying to get people's initial engagement with the brand to be a good one, right? And the food kind of speaks for itself. The hospitality environment that we try to deliver the food in, we think speaks for itself. So we've been very confident that if we can get people to have an experience with us, that we'll be able to retain them as a guest going forward. And that's very much been the case. Now, again, I think from a messaging standpoint, we haven't led with maybe some of the more, I want to say complicated flavor profiles, right? Things like eggplant and some of the sauces and some of those other things that are maybe on the edges of our menu, but people associate with Middle Eastern food. We've led more with things that people are familiar with, like chicken shawarma, and like a crispy chicken cutlet, Middle Eastern seasoned crispy chicken cutlet product that we have. We've led with hummus. We've led with falafel, so that people can have an early dining occasion with us that is Middle Eastern for sure, but also has some familiarity associated with it.
So what steps does NAF take to maintain consistency and the quality and taste of your Middle Eastern dishes as you grow across different brands, as you're expanding outside of the Chicago area? How are you maintaining consistency?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Our supply chain is of importance in that regard, obviously, and we're fortunate. Even though we're a small emerging brand, we have a national supply chain contract, so that we're able to assure consistency of the input items, really across the system. And that might sound like, a minor thing to people who are in this industry because, that's what everybody aspires to. But we were able to put that in place very early on. So as we've expanded outside of our home markets, we've been able to do so, delivering the exact same ingredients, the exact same products that we were in the original markets that NAFNAF grew up in. That coupled with, kind of maniacal training on the culinary side, I think those two things have allowed us to expand the brand and control the delivery of the food quality and the product that we're putting in the hands of our guests in a way that we feel very, very good about. But it's not without a lot of effort. We're a culinary brand. We're not a heat and serve brand. We're not an assembly brand. We're marinating chicken. We're building shawarma towers, every day in every store. We're roasting off fresh product. We're frying falafel. We're baking pita. I mean, this is these are live working kitchens. And that's a little more complicated, but we think it's worth it. When you have a chance to taste the product.
That's what I was going to ask. Why do so much in-house instead of just bringing it in? And I mean, I know the answer, but why is doing so much in-house important to the brand?
Back to the question you asked, a few moments ago about, kind of our heritage, right? And the authenticity of the origin story of this food, right? I mean, this food grew out of, the open air markets in the Middle East, where you would go to one vendor for pita because they had the best pita, and another vendor for falafel, and another for hummus, and another for shawarma, right? That's the DNA that founded this brand. And we think it's incredibly important that we maintain that. Our guests love to see us, frying falafel. That's a little hard to say, I guess. Frying falafel to order in the restaurants. They love to see, the pita puffing up in the pita oven as it bakes in front of them. They love to see us putting a new shawarma on and getting what our customers refer to as the first cut, right? That crispy outer layer that's kind of charred up real nicely, right? And you get that first cut off of those shawarmas that are roasting, 10 feet from them in the restaurant. I mean, that's who we are, and that's who we'll always be.
Does NAFNAF have a particular demographic, or is it across the board?
Well, I think the early triers, maybe are people who have maybe experienced the food elsewhere. Maybe they've traveled. Maybe they're a little more culinarily curious, right? When we move into a new market, they're willing to try something new. Those kinds of things. But as we get the brand more established in new markets, and particularly in our existing markets, you walk in one of our restaurants, you'll see a pretty diverse group of people in there. The value proposition we think is outstanding. You get a lot of food for your money. The food quality is I think unsurpassed in this space. And so that's broadly attractive to people, which is terrific.
In what ways does NAFNAF contribute to the overall understanding and appreciation of Middle Eastern culinary traditions in the communities that it serves?
What we try to do, right, it's for others to determine whether or not we accomplish this, but what we try to do is really embody Sahar. Sahar Sander was the founder of this brand. He passed away a few years ago. I was not fortunate enough to ever meet him, but he was a force of nature. And we try to absorb. We have tried to absorb as much of that as we can as a brand in terms of guiding how we operate and how we go forward. And he was maniacal about the food, which I mentioned earlier. He was also, the most hospitable guy you could have ever met. He would take people through the line and introduce them to certain products, or sit down and have a meal with them in the restaurants. offer samples of everything. So we try to have that same welcoming, open, hospitable environment to make it very easy for anybody who walks into one of our restaurants to kind of experience who he was and how he operated through this brand that is his legacy.
As you scale, do you worry about losing that authenticity?
Well, I worry about losing our connection to him, right? I don't worry about us losing our connection to the authenticity of the restaurant and the product, because that's why we exist, right? We exist to bake pita, to fry falafel, to grind chickpea in the restaurant, to build shawarma towers. That's what we do. That was his passion. And we're just the caretakers of that going forward. So I don't worry about us losing that connection to the authenticity of the food and his approach to it. That's who we are. That's why we exist.
What about, now you've got your set menu. Do you have specials that you run?
Yeah, I wouldn't say specials per se. We've gotten a little more. I've been with the brand about 3 years. I come out of the fast casual space. I've been an operator for longer than I care to admit now. And so we've started doing some things with the menu, both in terms of simplifying it to a certain extent and in terms of expanding it through LTOs or seasonal offerings or those kinds of things. And we've really done a lot of that in the last couple of years. We've reintroduced our crispy chicken cutlet product that was on the original menu in the original 3 restaurants in Naperville and had gone away for a while. We brought that back. We've enhanced some of our other proteins. We've gone to a different steak cut. We've introduced a new fry, which we think is terrific. It's kind of a substantial, really crispy, but substantial enough that you can kind of dip with it and eat hummus with it. And it's kind of a finger food, which is very, kind of very authentic in terms of Middle Eastern cuisine, the way it's consumed. We've introduced 2 new salad dressings. We've introduced a cucumber sauce that we call Navziki over the last year, which is a labneh-based product, which is just terrific. We've recently introduced a spicy hummus, which has gone gangbusters in our restaurants, and also helped us to double the sales of our crispy chicken pita sandwich. I guess our inadvertent entry into the hot chicken sandwich wars.
Right.
So we've done a lot. We've really done a lot with the menu. But we've also rationalized some of the more complicated items that were on the original 3 stores, which were founded really under a little bit of a different operating model than we currently operate out of today.
If you had a piece of advice to someone who maybe owns an ethnic restaurant and they're thinking about jumping into the franchising game or to start scaling their restaurant, what would you tell them having already done this?
Well, I think they're at the right place at the right time. Really, I think I think there's some fatigue around pizza, burger, sandwich, Mexican. People are looking for new flavor profiles. They're looking for new culinary experiences. I think the general white space, the segment that we're in, this Middle Eastern / Greek / Mediterranean, right? It's a little bit undefined. I think people give it a broader halo sometimes maybe than really exists, right? But that general space, I think people are becoming very attracted to. And I think there's a lot of growth opportunity there. There's a lot of Indian cuisine you're starting to see in more and more places around the country. So I think people are really clamoring for some new, different, not only tastes, but kind of dining experiences as well.
Well, thanks for being with us today. This has been really educational. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate the interest in the brand, and thanks for having us.
And that'll do it for this episode of the Restaurant Operator Podcast. We'll catch you next time.
With a full range of sauces and bases, Summit Hill Foods Professional helps you cut down on prep time, ingredients, and waste, so you can bring more flavor to your menu with a whole lot less of everything else. Learn more at shfoodspro.com/bigflavors.